Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft. So, continuing with our theme of February love stories, I'm going to tell you guys the Japanese legend of the Snow Wife, and I think you guys are going to love this one. So, let's get into it. Way in the long ago, in the mountains of the Northern Japan. Wow. Lived an old woodcutter named Mosaku and his son Minokichi. And, it's the winter time. They're hungry. There's not a lot of business, not a lot of work happening in the wintertime, but, you gotta eat. So they head up into the woods to start looking for animals to hunt. But, they're not having any luck. They're not seeing any animals, not even any traces of animals. So they start to head deeper and deeper into the woods, which starts to take them farther up the mountain into colder weather. The wind starts to kick up. It starts to get a little bit colder, but still they don't see any signs of animal life. And they're like, we gotta eat, so we gotta keep going. And, Minokichi starts to have some doubts that, maybe they just need to turn around. It's getting colder. It's getting windier. They haven't seen animals for hours, and, eventually it's going to be nighttime and they're going to be stuck out there if they don't turn around soon. But his dad's like, no, let's keep going. And while they're walking, they're talking about how strange it is that they aren't seeing any traces of animals, because even though it's winter, they should see at least like a footprint or, something left behind, some sort of indication that there are animals about, but they just aren't having any luck finding them. So, as they're heading farther up the mountain, and it's starting to get a little bit darker, the temperature is dropping, and now the wind has kicked up into a full-on snowstorm. And at this point, Minokichi is done. He's like, you know what? We have been out here in these woods, in this weather, long enough. We need to go home. And his dad's like, no. It's too late to turn around and go home. It'd be too dangerous to go back. There's an old woodcutter's hut just a little bit out of the way here, so we're going to climb up there and stay there for the night. So they make it to the hut, they start the fire, they chill out, but, they don't have anything to do because they don't have any food to eat. So, there's nothing else but just to hang out and go to sleep. So they decide, to take turns watching the fire. And Minokichi decides to take the first watch, but he gets tired. It has been a long day of walking in cold weather, so he also falls asleep. So him and Mosaku are asleep, and they're sleeping peacefully when suddenly, Minokichi realizes that, he's getting really cold, which means the fire must have gone out. So he starts to wake up shivering, and he looks over at his father across the way from him and sees that there is this beautiful woman with skin as pale as snow, hair that's like frosty, like blue ice. And she is looming over his father, and she's taking a deep breath in, and she is drawing the life right out of Mosaku. And the woman turns towards him, and she stops and she looks, and he doesn't say anything. He doesn't move. He doesn't react. And she just looks at him, and she is shook because, you guys, I didn't tell you this, but Minokichi is a freaking fox. And she's like, this man is young and beautiful. Any malice that she had, gone. Any response she was going to give, gone, because she is awestruck by how beautiful Minokichi is. So she tells him that she won't put the fire of his youth out, but in return, he must never tell anyone about how his father died and what he'd seen that night. Otherwise, she's going to come back and kill him. And then she disappears in a flurry of snow. Minokichi faints from the shock of seeing this mysterious snow woman, and wakes up in the morning to find out that his father had frozen to death in the night. Rest in peace. Very sad. But he goes back home. They have the funeral. It's just him and his father. So there's nobody else to really lean on at this time. And he can't really explain to anybody what happened because remember, he made a promise not to say anything. So he just turns inward and turns his grief into a life of solitude and quiet contemplation, unable to share with anybody what actually happened. And a full year passes like this, where Minokichi is just going through the motions, living his life alone in the mountainside, doing his woodcutter job. Um, and, it's winter again. A full year has gone by. And he decides he's going to stay inside. He's definitely not going out in the mountains. Uh, doesn't matter how hungry he gets. He's already got, some rice stocked up. So he's good to go. He has prepared for the winter. He's not going to get caught off guard like that again and be in that situation where he might run into the snow woman again. So he decides he's going to stay inside. The snowstorm starts kicking up outside, and he thinks to himself, I'm definitely not going out into the mountains, but I should grab a couple more logs for the fire so that it doesn't go out in the night. And when he goes outside, he finds a woman right next to his woodpile, face down on the snow, totally unconscious. So he picks her up and brings her inside. And when she wakes up and gets a little bit revived, she tells him, that she's a traveler and she had gotten lost in the snow and lost her way. And, they stay up all night talking. She tells him about her life, her likes, her dislikes. He tells her everything he can, minus the secret he can never tell anybody. And, they just really hit it off. And by the morning, they're in love. So in love that she never leaves. So her name is Oyuki, and they get married as soon as the winter thaw comes around and it's spring. They get married, and they live this beautiful, idyllic storytale, fairy tale life. They're super happy together. They always communicate couple goals, Minokichi and Oyuki. And they never had any problems. They got along fantastically. And the only time that any issues would arise was when it was super hot in summer, Oyuki would get really faint and she'd have to stay inside. But Minokichi didn't mind this. He was like, my wife is so beautiful, that the fact that she gets a little bit delicate in the heat doesn't bother me. So he took up all the household duties anytime that Oyuki was unable to proceed. So when she had to rest, he picked up, the cleaning, the laundry, everything he could to just make sure she was comfortable. So a king, Minokichi. And then eventually they have 5 children. So, over the course of years, they have 5 children. They have this happy marriage, and the duties that Minokichi picks up doesn't just extend to I'll cook the food and clean the house. He takes care of his kids too. He loves his children. So they're living a great life, and they are so in love that Oyuki, when she has free moments, will go help him do his wood cutting job and help him sell the wood in town and stuff like that. So everybody's involved. Everyone is getting in there. They're just goals, and the village is so impressed by them, even to the point where some of the people are a little bit jealous that Minokichi found such a beautiful and dignified wife, because that's something people remark on constantly: how elegant she is, how dignified she is, how she seems like she's nobility because she's just so beautiful and proper and managed. She's got all the manners, every manner you could have, she has. And, people are a little bit jealous, but nobody hates on them because they're just so happy to see that Minokichi has come out of his funk and really come into his own, and Oyuki helped him do that. So after a couple of years of this idyllic life, Minokichi gets to notice that while he's getting older and aging, his beautiful wife stays the same. She looks exactly as they did when they first got married, never aging. So one cold winter night, after they put the children to sleep, Minokichi starts to feel a little bit nostalgic about how they met. And he starts telling her, the story of how he found her and just remembering that day. And then, he voices his regrets that his dad never got to meet his beautiful wife. And so then he starts to tell her the story about how his dad died on a cold night, just like the one that they're experiencing now. And he tells Oyuki about how she reminds him of the beautiful snow woman that he saw, because she has this same timeless beauty and dignity. And she listens. She doesn't say anything. She listens to the whole story, the whole comparison between herself and this other woman. And when he finishes the story, she only says one thing. She says, "Didn't you make a promise that night?" And Minokichi says, "Well, yeah, actually, I didn't mention that, but yeah, I did actually make a promise." And Oyuki, her face grows dark. She looks away from him. She says, I warned you, didn't I? I warned you that I would kill you if you told anyone. And absolutely shaken to his core, Minokichi begs for forgiveness because before his eyes, Oyuki transforms into the snow woman that he saw that night. And she tells him that she would have killed him, but when she looks at him, she can only see the faces of her children. So she tells him that she will spare his life as long as he takes care of her children until his dying day. And then she fades out of the window into a snow flurry cloud and is lost in the night. So Minokichi chases out into the blizzard, trying to find her and begging for her forgiveness, but she is gone and she never returns. But Minokichi does keep his promise and take care of his children until his dying day. And that's the end of the story. The snow woman is Yuki Onna. And they say that on a cold snow night in the mountains, you can still hear her calling out when the wind blows and it goes, ooh. That's Yuki Onna calling out. And she is one of a plethora of Japanese yokai who are like monster, demon, spirit type creatures who take the form of a woman. There's actually a ton of them that take a form of a woman, and I love that. But Yuki Onna is one of them. She's not considered to be particularly vicious in most of the canonized lore, but more like a force of nature. She's like a metaphor for the winter and winter storms. And she drains the life of people by freezing them. That's what they think. You've been touched by Yuki Onna if you are found frozen to death in the woods or in the winter. But she tends to go after people who are just unlucky enough to be caught out in the arms of her storm. But some legends will say that she's the avenging spirit and she only targets men who are dishonest and unfaithful. And this is sort of derived from the fact that it's believed that she might be the spirit of a woman who either froze to death like when she was lost in a blizzard, or who was abandoned by her husband in a blizzard to die in the snow. And that's where that sort of avenging, vengeful like aspect of her comes from, where she goes after all these dishonest men. Another like sadder version of the story says that she only takes those who are lost and abandoned, such as children, animals, the elderly, stuff like that, which is so sad when you think about it, because those are the people who would die first, like in a winter storm or winter environment. But she takes them into her icy embrace to rescue them from being neglected out in the cold. And like I think that's just a really beautiful, touching, but like really sad and melancholy aspect of her tale. I like the idea of her being more of a just nature spirit, like a force of nature, than having like any particular reasoning assigned to her behind her. But those are also like versions of her tale that exist. But yeah, across the board, if anyone has been found frozen in the night, it's said that they have been touched or kissed by Yuki Onna, the snow wife. And yeah, that's my story, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. A little bit of a sadder romance, but I think two of the stories so far, I guess. This one and the Apollo and Hyacinthus story were pretty sad, but they are good stories, and I hope that you enjoyed them. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate your faces, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Don't forget, if you have any requests for a story craft or a story that you would like to hear, let me know in the comments below. You can tell me a story you want to hear, or you can tell me a craft you want to see, because I need crafts to keep doing the series. So let me know. But yeah, I'll catch you all in the next one, guys. Till then, happy crafting. Bye!